Welcome to EDUC 639's week number 4. This presentation will begin with a flashback of some learning we have already accomplished and introduce this week's activities. Here, in week number 4, we have some chapter readings and a Q&A discussion forum, which will be explained here and on Moodle. You also will be asked to continue to explore North Carolina's comprehensive reading plan by listening to a narrated discussion of expectations on the final project that is associated with it. This week's load is a little lighter with the intention of allowing you time to work on the beginnings of the Comprehensive Reading Plan project, which is due at the end of week 7. Flashback. I finished grading the synthesis journals and the Powerful Points forum last week. If you haven't already, you will start to see grades coming in for the Comprehensive Reading Plan reflection, chapters 7 to 10 forum, and the PLC plan throughout this upcoming week and into the weekend. With the synthesis journal, I made it a point to provide some feedback and also provided you with some new ideas to add to your toolbox of teaching as a literacy leader. Chapters 7 to 10 in our text focused on material selection of literature that matches the needs and interests of your students. Student interest is a huge motivator in reading, as we have explored in other courses. We need to make sure that we have books available to our students which they will want to pick up and read. Being culturally responsive when stocking your classroom bookshelves is one key idea in helping and to keep in mind to ensure interest levels and the diversity of your classroom are represented. Our classrooms need to be filled with quality materials, ones that can be used for different purposes as well. A basal series should not be the sole source of reading for students. Therefore, books used in classrooms should not be there only for ELA purposes, but also can be tied into the content learning as well. These materials could be ones which can support learning, be revisited, and looked at through a different lens. Think about it like close reading, where there are several different looks at the same material, which allows students to dig deeper into the text and what it means. Many learners pointed out that 21st century skills also need to be addressed when looking at the teaching of reading. Digital access is available 24/7. We need to make sure to guide our students in a balance of appropriate online reading and hard copy reading of actual books. And I can speak to this on a certain level. My students and I have lots of conversations about reading. And many of them, they like to do their research online. They like to be able to go onto Google and put in their search and find information and then read informational type of things online. However, there are so many of them that when they're reading a book for enjoyment, they want that physical book. They talk about how actually turning the page is satisfying, feeling it in their hands, and even some mentioned the whole smell of the book, and then they'll flip through the pages and smell it. And that was something that they valued more when they're reading for enjoyment over using a Kindle, a Nook, or any online ebook kind of reading. I would say that 90% of my readers in 6th grade prefer an actual book for reading for pleasure rather than to read on a device. But they prefer using their device and using the digital access for informational text and information research purposes. Evaluating and providing feedback on quality instruction was a topic in Chapter 8. As an administrator, which is what a reading specialist is considered, it is best to be transparent with educators with expectations in the area of teacher evaluation. Observing teachers in their element should be a priority. How can an administrator effectively provide feedback if he or she hasn't been in multiple times to watch that teacher bring a lesson to fruition and interact with students? Evaluators should be asking for teacher input and discussing ideas for enhancing their teaching. Asking their educators to highlight strengths and admit weaknesses is also important to develop a sense of what needs to be worked on as a whole staff. With the continuation of educator effectiveness and other types of evaluation systems, the idea of having more consistency with observations and discussions in the evaluation process includes plans towards improvement, and this will help develop a focus for professional development to create those positive educational changes that need to happen. That leads us quite nicely into the topic of Chapter 9, providing meaningful professional development. Tying in this idea with evaluation, the drive for professional development should center on the needs of the educators in a district or school. Think about what was uncovered through observations and discussions with teachers and their administrators. That should provide a vision for what needs to be strengthened in order to produce high-quality education and allow teachers to see value in the support being provided. The support that's provided should relate to their teaching lives. Part of what administration should use to help in aligning professional development to teacher needs, beyond evaluation, is by looking at that student data. These types of assessments should not be used as a sole indicator of success or failures of instruction. We know that many times that benchmark data is a one-time snapshot in the lives of students. It could be that maybe that day that student wasn't feeling well, they were having an off day, they found out their dog died, or even something worse that has an effect on how they perform. Several years ago in Wisconsin, our state test was changed, as it has been changing, it feels like, multiple times over the last 5 years, and it continues to be tweaked. I remember that first year of the Badger exam. In our district, there were so many complications and technological issues, it was hard for us as a district to find the data valuable. All those technical snafus really had an impact on students. The students were getting frustrated, and then they started to shut down because they couldn't move forward or they couldn't do what it was that the test was asking them to do, and so therefore they didn't perform very well overall. These are things to keep in mind when looking at student data and as a means for evaluation. However, historically as a whole, the data can be used to show growth, and if used to drive instruction, can be very effective. Teacher observations and anecdotal notes about their students should also be taken into consideration when thinking about student data and growth. But an evaluation of a teacher should not solely be focused on the data. There should be a multitude of different things that are used in that. I want to provide a few nuggets of knowledge about PLCs. Since only a few PLC plans have been turned in at the time of this introductory presentation, I haven't had a chance to glean any information about those. So instead, I'm going to provide you with some general thoughts about PLCs. PLCs are there to address the collective ability and capacity of teachers in a school so that they can address challenges and solve problems that enable the school or district to become more effective in providing and improving student learning. PLCs are groups of teachers who meet regularly to increase not only their learning but also their students' learning as well. Typically, PLCs have shared values and behaviors, what our group likes to call common commitments and norms. They concentrate on student learning, and they have reflective practices and always constantly are thinking, how can they do a better job? Many times PLCs are going to face challenges, and some of these challenges might be the teacher buy-in. Is everyone on your team going to fully implement what needs to be changed or the professional development they're working on? Some other challenges are the support that administration is providing or too much micromanaging as well. Sometimes you need to give some autonomy to teachers so that they can make the right choices. And that administrator or the person who's supervising and working with the PLC needs to be one to guide them and not micromanage what each person is doing. That just doesn't make teachers feel valued when that happens. And some of the challenges may focus on the process instead of student learning. And student learning is what we ultimately want to improve, and that should be more of the focus. On to this week's tasks, chapters 4 through 6, the Q&A forum. In a Q&A forum, you will not be allowed to preview other learners' ideas. What will happen is there will be a discussion prompt that I have provided, and in this case there will be 2 prompts. And once you answer the discussion prompt by hitting reply to my post, there will be a 30-minute grace period where you will be able to go back and edit your post. During this 30-minute grace period, you will not be able to see anything else that might have been posted before you replied to the prompt. But after that 30-minute grace period has elapsed, you will be able to return and view other learners' answers. Your initial post for each prompt needs to be completed by Thursday at midnight and replies to 2 other learners by Sunday at 10 p.m. Once again, share your experiences or offer ideas that may suit the author's needs. Avoid comments that are limited to "I agree" or "great idea." If you agree or disagree with the posting, then say why you agree by supporting your statement with concepts from the readings or by bringing in a related example or experience. and proper discussion etiquette is always expected. You will be expected to reply to 2 other learners for each different prompt. So for prompt 1, you will have an answer and then 2 replies, and then prompt 2, you will have your answer and then reply to 2 other learners in that as well. The grade for this form will be doubled due to the depth of thinking involved, and the 2 separate threads you will be responding to will be scored half. So 50 points, 25 for prompt number 1, 25 for prompt number 2. Once again, after reading the chapters in our text, answer the 2 prompts. Remember, you will not be creating your own thread. Instead, you'll be answering the question prompts and replying to 2 other learners in each of the discussions. In prompt number 1, you're provided this thought. Literacy leaders must be aware of data-driven instruction and culturally responsive teaching to produce significant educational change. This is our purpose. Do you agree or disagree? In your response to this first post, please title it which side of this argument you are on. Are you agreeing or disagreeing? And then defend your position in the body of your post by referencing our reading and other resources. You do not need to APA cite anything, but references to sources we have explored is necessary for the course. Reply to at least 2 other learners' stance to this prompt by restating and validating their ideas before adding your own supported critical thinking about the prompt. Prompt number 2 reads, in today's schools, literacy leaders often navigate the waters that connect teacher evaluation to educational change. How can this be accomplished effectively? What do you feel is the most essential consideration, and why does this matter? Once again, reply to that prompt, and then revisit the thread later and reply to 2 other learners. And I've posted here things to remember, that you do not make your own thread. Instead, you will build upon the prompts that I've provided. Make sure that you're validating and restating each classmate's ideas before adding your own when you're replying. And references to the text and other resources are important when supporting your comments. But you do not need to APA cite it and have a reference at the bottom. The Comprehensive Reading Plan, also known as CRP. This is that ongoing exploration that we're going to be doing for this culminating project. For this multi-week assignment, we began with our first glances of North Carolina's plan in week number 2. In week 4, we're going to start off, I'd ask you to start off by watching the screencast example of a previous learner's self-created rubric for evaluating a comprehensive reading plan. This is narrated by a previous professor of this course. In the past, learners evaluated their district CRP. However, not all districts have a comprehensive plan in place, which is why we are all focusing on North Carolina's plan. In the screencast you're going to watch, you'll be provided with guidance in creating rubrics for evaluating a plan. This example is one example and focuses on the curriculum rubric only when explaining the project and how to go about developing it. You do not need to follow and mirror this example down to its details. Instead, I want you to make your rubric something that is valuable for you. And this screencast is a guide, and its purpose is to give you some direction and examples. It provides some food for thought and ideas to consider as you create your rubrics. After watching the screencast, you will head back to our text and refer to the questions found there to develop these different rubrics. 1 on curriculum, instruction, assessment, and process. So in the end, you will be creating 4 rubrics. 1 on the curricular aspect of the plan, 1 about evaluating instruction, another on the assessment part, and lastly, focusing on the process. You will also, besides these 4 rubrics, be creating a narrative for each of them, including recommendations of improvements the district could make in each particular area. And this is explained in the screencast you're going to watch. These next 2 weeks then should be used in creating your rubrics. Included are some questions to consider overall when developing these. Does the plan have goals that are aligned to standards? Does the plan address the needs of all learners K-12? Is the plan aligned with what is taught, how it's taught, and how it is assessed? Your rubrics need to have a column or area which includes reasons or evidence supporting your evaluation of the criteria found in North Carolina's plan. We will be sharing our rubrics in week 6 for peer feedback. I will provide feedback where I feel it is needed if beyond the feedback of your peers. Then in week 7, you will finalize your rubrics, create a narrative and report with detailed explanations to accompany each of your rubrics that you've created, and submit it on Moodle. There are not going to be any formal assignments attached to the work you'll be completing over the next couple weeks, except the due date of having a draft of each rubric completed for week 6 so it can receive some peer feedback. So therefore, please make sure to devote some time to work on this project. I don't want you to lose sight of this and then put it off until the last moment and feel overwhelmed. I will remind you and continue to remind you over the next couple weeks to continue to create and revise those rubrics. Once again, please contact me if you have any questions or need any further clarification. Email is something I check most often, so it is the best way to reach me for direct questions. Happy reading, everyone!